Hey, what's up?
Hey, welcome. Sorry for that very loud intro. Did not realize that mic still in very bad condition, and I was told it wasn't. Very clearly is. You can tell by the volume there, so I really apologize for that. But welcome, uh, people of the future. It is I, Niab. I'm here again in front of this. Except I'm not here again technically because as of right now, for me, I'm recording this before they get into. So you're all seeing this after they get into. I haven't even made this shit yet. In fact, I plan on doing so right after this. But yeah, interesting how the events have transpired, isn't it? All right, so this video is something definitely interesting that I wanted to talk about because, of course, just like we get into, it's about ReZero. I mean, you could probably tell by the title, the thumbnail, the previous get into. If you can see it in the background, you can tell by over there. Over there. I forget that OBS kind of has this camera window smaller, but there. So as you could tell, we're going to be talking more about it because I pretty much just finished Arc 5 yesterday. I just read the whole thing, essentially. Or not really read the whole thing. I didn't read the whole thing in a day. That would be horrifying if I did that because that's a whole lot of time dedicated to that. I don't even think you could finish it in a day. But I finished it yesterday. Really fucking great arc. Absolutely my favorite. And that's a big deal to say because arc 3 is a big deal for me. And let me get right into that. Because arc 3 for me is huge because it establishes not only like a whole lot in terms of plot, villains, all this. My favorite character gets rooted into the ground, and that's a really important thing. Is an arc fully rooting a character into the ground and making me really fucking like enjoy them. Because the biggest thing, right? If I'm to make a comparison with this, I know this sounds like me slightly rambling, but hear me out. The biggest thing with an arc making me enjoy a character a whole lot when I was overall kind of just introduced to them is like to compare it. I'm going to use, for example, Hunter x Hunter, which I watched around the same time as ReZero and have not continued since around that same time because I'm watching it with friends. Would really be cool if we continued that. But anyways, that's besides the point. A good example is that where for the longest while of watching that, I didn't really have a favorite character because there was no characters who felt like they were really established all that well. There was characters who were there and they had their jobs, their roles, all that. Here's the protagonist. Here, one of them's an assassin. One of them's the son of a legendary hunter. All this shit. Like their roles and everything were established, but there wasn't enough there to make me say, okay, I can understand this character if you get what I mean. Even somebody like Killua, who had his own small little arc where you learn more about him and everything. Even he didn't even feel super like grounded because it kind of just felt like, yeah, here's his family, here's how they work, here's how he meshes into that. But there was nothing that really showed me a whole lot to his character. And I felt this way about everybody in that show until eventually I got to York New and I saw Kurapika doing all his shit and everything. And there was just so much to him that I saw like a whole bunch of emotions out of him. I saw a whole bunch of big moments for him. And that actually made him feel grounded because it felt like, okay, I'm actually seeing more of his character instead of them just showing me, hey, if we didn't already establish what this character's role is, here it is. It actually felt not like, no, here's this character, we're putting more on them, and now you might enjoy them more. Now, I haven't gone past that point yet, still haven't watched more, like I said, but he definitely seems like my favorite character so far because of that. And this was the same case with Arc 3 with Rem, where she felt like this character who, out of nowhere, got this huge building on her. She was already well built in Arc 2, I'd say. That's one big point I will mention, is Arc 2, she already felt like a character who was already well built. I could understand her, along with every other character that was introduced in Arc 2. Like, ReZero does a really fucking good job at introducing characters and making them feel like their own genuine, unique characters. But she was already established with Arc 2, but Arc 3 really pushed her even more and made her this bigger character of, oh, here's her motives and stuff, here's how she views Subaru, all this. It all worked out really nicely to the point that I was like, wow, this character is fantastic. This is absolutely my favorite character. I immediately established that after I was done episode 18, because I was like, wow, her motives, all this, like, everything felt so fucking good and well written about her that I was like, you know what? Yeah, no, this is my favorite character. And it still stands that way. And it still stands that way. Now, with that established, that should explain to you why Arc 5 being my new favorite is this huge deal out of nowhere. This is like a massive fucking thing. Because Arc 3, I held so fucking high that even Arc 4, that I enjoyed a whole lot, it had, like, you know, a little bit of a confusing plot, but Arc 4 was still really fucking good. It established a lot of backstories for a whole bunch of characters. In fact, backstories that were really good, like Amelia's and Beatrice's / Roswell's, all that. It established those, and those were really great, and the plot of it was also really great. It explained a whole lot, really. But even that, to me, paled in comparison to Arc 3. But now, I've fully read Arc 5, and I'm like, well, damn. This is even fucking better. And of course, I'm going to spend this entire video talking about this. At first, this was going to be a video about one of the villains, because I had finished Volume 1 and I got a little bit into Volume 2, and I was going to make this a video about one of the villains. If you've already seen the arc, you should immediately guess who, considering the intro and everything, but as well as the details I just listed. But I decided after reading enough, after reading Volume 2, which Volume 2, that alone, reading that whole thing, decided for me, yeah, no, this is my new favorite. And I decided to keep going from there. And that was pretty much the moment I decided, yeah, I'm making a video on this, and I'm probably going to make a video on Arc 6. I'll make a video on Arc 7 when that's finished. In like 2,000 years, you know, you're just going to have to wait that long, but hey. But I'll make a video when that happens. But yeah, I decided I'm going to make an entire video on Arc 5. So this is going to be me talking about it, giving my opinions on it, also talking about the plot. And hey, if you're reading Arc 5 as well, or you've completely read it, you can go along with me. Or if you don't care about spoilers, that's always a possibility too. If you don't care about spoilers, you could just listen to me talk about it and learn some neat things and go, oh wow, that's neat. And hey, if you're reading along, I have specific timestamps of each area here that are just essentially the volumes, as well as another section. We'll get into that, but there's essentially a section for each volume. That way, if you want to be overall in the same pace with me and then continue reading, then come back here, or whatever you may feel like, you're free to do so as well. That also works. But anyways, let's get right fucking into it, because I really want to talk about this shit. Let's do it. Let's talk about my new favorite arc. Let's go. Hey, Niab from a few days later here. This video, I had to restart this entire thing. You might notice, especially because I had my headphones off, I'm also now using the actual mic, and it's also just a whole lot brighter and everything. I don't know how that happened, by the way. Same lights, it's just somehow brighter now. I didn't press anything. It's just brighter, but I'll take it. But we're back here a few days later. I had to reset that entire video because it was 3 hours long, and if you're wondering why, I was just recapping the story. I didn't actually like give my own thoughts or anything. I kind of did here and there, but really a majority of it was just me recapping the entire story. So let's start over again. Just me going through it, talking about my opinions and shit. We're not going to recap because that would take way too long, and I don't think you're here to hear a recap. I think you're here to hear my opinions of the arc, since I'm the one who just read it. So, Volume 1, let's get into it. So Volume 1 of Arc 5 is really tame, which you'd kind of expect from a first volume. Like, it's just there to establish everything. There's nothing really dramatic about it other than the end of it, as well as a chapter in between, and we'll get to that in a moment. But really, the first good bit of Arc 5 is kind of just characters talking about how they're going to go to the Watergate city of Priscilla, all that shit, all the characters they're going to meet there. It's nothing really huge, it's just kind of characters mentioning their motives and everything, and one of the biggest motives being to get Puck back. This is not brought up a whole lot, and I honestly think that's a slight problem with the arc. I know there's a lot that happens this arc, and obviously they shouldn't really discuss it as much as, you know, they can, right? Shove it into every chapter. I don't want them doing that, but at the same time, it gets discussed at the start, the most, in the middle a bit, and kinda at the end. Or actually not even kinda at the end. It pretty much gets talked about at the end of Arc 5, but it's really not talked about a whole lot throughout the arc. It's kinda just something that's there that when it gets talked about again, your brain immediately goes, oh yeah, right, shit, that was a plot line. I forgot about that. And it's kind of weird that it's done in that way. I fully get why they didn't do it, right? Because obviously there's way bigger things, and obviously I'm going to talk about those bigger things, but it was weird to me. I felt like that was one of the minor complaints I had. It was just, if you're going to establish something like that as a big plot line for the characters, which is like huge, right? This is a character that we've known for a while, we kind of should see more of, or at least know more of about all that. It's weird to just move away from that and focus more on, oh, here's all these characters fucking eating pancakes, right? For a whole chapter. Which, I mean, it's funny, it's something dramatic that happens there. I'll get to that. Just, it's funny that it's handled this way, in my opinion, and it's a little bit but overall, not that bad. I just kind of wish it was discussed more. I will say, however, there is one really nice moment at the start of Arc 5, I think around chapter 1 or 2. I'm not entirely sure. I was reading it off the actual light novel, and then I switched to the online website when I was like halfway through volume 1, just because I knew that there was some mistranslations later, especially with the second volume, because I switched as soon as I heard what happened with the second volume, because I did not want to deal with anything like that. But I was kind of reading through the light novel, so I'm not entirely sure if it's chapter 1 or 2. However, there is a really nice moment where they pretty much establish that Subaru this entire fucking time, since, from what I can assume, Arc 4, at least maybe the end of Arc 4 or something like that, has been telling like the day-by-day stories of just what happens and everything, you know, daily, to Ren while she is sleeping. And that's just a little cute thing that they shoved in there that I kind of like. It's a neat little thing that says, like, yeah, no, look, he's still taking care of her, and he's also telling her fucking stories. He's being her hero, and I kind of like that a lot. It's great. I think that's a genuinely great moment that's in there, and I don't know that, I don't think I've seen that many people talk about it, at least, you know, from what I've seen from, like, Twitter and shit. So, it's kind of unfortunate. I in a way, I almost wish more people just pointed out that small little moment. Then again, I might have some bias, but I don't think really it's fully biased. I think that's just a genuinely really great moment. So they get to the city, there's a whole lot of talking, they go to the man that they need to talk to for the whole deal with getting Puck back and everything, and then we're also introduced to Liliana. If you see the timestamps, you know, the cards that you can pull up at the bottom of here, right, that go to the side of the video around here, you can see that there's a section there with her name on it. Just wait till we get there. I'll talk about her more when we get there, but just wait. I'm not going to say much about her right now. I have my own complete thoughts to give about this character, and but overall there's not too much huge that happens here. It's kind of just characters talking, interacting, Subaru kind of fucks up the deal a little bit. Oh no, they have to delay it to the next day. All these characters come in from each of the kingdoms, each of the areas, whatever. They're all talking, they're all hanging out. The biggest thing that happens, really, that I should discuss is Wilhelm and Reinhard, because this is this huge thing that, these two are very clearly related. It's something that you probably wouldn't think about too much, but it's like, oh yeah, right. These two would be related, considering who Wilhelm's wife was. And it's established here that, in a way, Reinhard almost feels responsible for his grandmother's death, and Wilhelm, for a short bit of time, kind of blamed him for it, and now it's this weird, awkward moment for them where Wilhelm wants to be able to speak to him, but he feels like he can't, and all this shit, and especially the part of two different factions, all that. It's this big drama that they try to resolve during the pancake scene. By the way, during the pancake scene, this is happening while characters are stuffing their faces with pancakes, and it's just a goofy little fun moment that they are trying to talk, and then Reinhard's father, who we learn about, Heinkel, comes in. He's an asshole. Nobody likes him. Both from a viewer point, although he's written well because you want to hate him, and that's good, but also just all the characters there don't like him. Like even Priscilla, who's there, who literally brought him in. Even she's like, oh yeah, no, fuck this guy. I only brought him because it's funny to see all of you, have this family drama, but fuck this guy. So it's a little bit wild and everything, but, he's an asshole. He gets his shit stomped and then thrown out, but he does make a scene with Reinhard and Wilhelm, and that's a little bit, ooh, right? It makes you squirm or get angry, and it's good. It's a good scene overall. So then more time passes. Julius and Subaru start talking about Heinkel and how that guy's an asshole, and then this relation with Reinhard and Wilhelm and all that. They basically have that big discussion. Then later, they're all walking, Subaru, Emilia, Beatrice, all towards where Liliana is, unfortunately. Gotta deal with her more. Just wait till I get to that timestamp. I'm gonna go off. But overall, it's just characters kind of talking. Nothing really huge there other than learning more about, I guess, Priscilla's the views in a way, if you really want to say that. Just how she views Liliana as if, she wants Liliana as her own servant, her own bard, and how Liliana wants to be her own free singer, whatever. I really could not give less of a shit of Liliana. I can't wait to get to that time step. But overall, it's kind of just everybody chatting. And then, of course, Subaru goes to get some sweets for them. And this is where shit goes down. Because as soon as he's going to do that, he runs into one of Feld's people, one of the thieves that was in the back alley of Arc 1. I think his name was Larkins. Honestly, don't remember the other two. I just remember one of them was called Larkins, and I don't remember which one he is. I think he was the skinnier one. Not entirely sure. But they have a run-in, getting a little bit upset at each other because, they have a past. They have a past here where it's like, he was trying to rob Subaru, and then Subaru's just upset at him because fuck you for that. But, it's this conversation they have, except this entire thing is interrupted. This entire scene that, is just kind of there, it's just kind of playing out, is interrupted by fucking Raph. We get introduced to the Archbishop of Raph now, just at the end of Volume 1, just there already. And her name is fucking Sirius, and holy shit, she might be one of my favorite villains of just any fucking media in general. I mean, I feel like I would hold somebody like Rao from Fist of the North Star just slightly higher. That's very much biased. I fucking love that man. He might be my favorite character of anything. Just full stop. He's that good. But, she's a close second, as well as another villain who's going to get introduced in Arc 5. They're both really good. I really like both of them a whole lot. But, man, Sirius gets introduced here. And the first thing she does is get the whole crowd to share the same feelings as one another. And then takes out a kid who's, I believe, tied up. and just pushes him off, and everybody there shares the same fate as that kid. That kid fucking cracks like an egg on the floor, and so does everybody else in the square. And this is huge, dude, right? Because immediately, this immediately establishes what her ability is like. And this is an ability, in my opinion, that is really fucking cool. And I'm gonna get more into that when we get to the Volume 2 section. But this is already, just from what is already established, a really fucking cool ability. It's cool to see a character who can share, like, the feelings of one person to many or something, or the feelings of herself, whatever it may be, right? But then the even like further idea that you can just fucking kill a character, and now everybody within a certain area is also dead. Like, that is insane. That is broken and insane. That is really fucking cool. And she just gets better, because now we're on to Volume 2, and now they just add on to her more. I really fucking love this character. Let's move on to Volume 2. So now we start Volume 2, and this is immediately this huge, just in a row, like, waves of problems for Subaru, because this is a constant, he can't do shit, almost, in this scenario, right? This is almost like a third arc type of scenario where it was, like, constantly just going back, and it almost felt like, yeah, I know there's no way of winning, right? It almost felt like that, because immediately, the first chapter is essentially him thinking, okay, I can solve this, all I have to do is go attack her first, right? If I just run up there before she makes this essentially just, you know, speech to the crowd and pushes the kid off, if I stop that, if I just go up there and stop that, nothing happens, nothing bad will happen, I just have to stop her. And he runs up there, tries to hit her with his whip, which, by the way, he has a whip now. Neat. I think it's a unique weapon. Like, honestly, yeah, it's more of a obvious, like, more common main type of weapon, I guess you could say, for a character. But for this type of scenario, I feel like the obvious choice always is something like, oh, a sword or some shit. So doing something unique like a whip, I feel like works well. It also works from a narrative perspective, because the whole thing is he can't really improve on the sword with the amount of time that he has, because it's only been a whole year since Arc 4, so it's like, yeah, he can't really get good with a sword within that amount of time, plus he might just not be, like, good at using it full stop. So, hey, whip, that's decently easy to use, kinda. At least effectively, you know, it wouldn't take too long to use well, so it works. But he attempts to hit Sirius with it, doesn't work out super well, he hits her with his body, flies out, tries to help the kid, and immediately, you know, I've been saying that this is one of my favorite fucking, like, new villains and all that, and just favorite, like, really close to my favorite villain of all time, right? They might have to build on her more, but who knows, maybe she could reach that fucking title. And this death right here is quite possibly my favorite that's happened in the series so far, because I have legitimately wanted for the longest while, since I got into the series back in fucking June. I had wanted, like, okay, I want there to be a death at some point that is some shit like he completely goes insane to a ridiculous degree that he just has a heart attack. And it happens here. It quite literally happens here, and I had the biggest, dumbest smile on my face. It was horrifying to see what they were implying with this shit, but I had the biggest, dumbest smile on my face, because I was like, yes, finally, fuck. It felt so good to see this shit. It made me so damn happy. So the fear from the kid gets put onto Subaru, and then put back to the kid. and put back to him, and it's being put back and forth like infinitely. They're fucking vomiting. They're on the floor, shaking in fear. They can't do shit, and eventually, he just dies of a heart attack. And this is really fucking cool. Not from the sense that he's dead, laying in his own vomit. That part's kind of disgusting and horrifying. But more so, this further explanation of the ability that the feelings can also be shared infinitely. This makes it even more broken, and it also makes it way more cool, because this means that this shit can just keep going. It can keep going forever. People can get happier and happier. This is an actual character who, out of all the archbishops, I probably want to say this is the one who could cause the absolute most damage within a short amount of time, right? If she if they were like, okay, the next thing that the fucking gospel tells us is to just kill 100 people, Sirius could probably do that the fastest out of any of them, and it's just simply because of her ability. Not even just because she could kill one and I would kill all of them. It's just she wouldn't even possibly have to injure them. They'd just fucking die. So it's okay, wow, alright. This is something else. This is horrifying in terms of an ability, but fucking great. And then Subaru loops around again, right? This time, the plan is, oh shit, Larkins is there. He's part of Felt's group. Felt's group has Reinhardt. Reinhardt fight person. Reinhardt win. Reinhardt big strong. He will win. He does that plan, gets Reinhardt to come. Reinhardt starts fighting Sirius. He unties the kid, tries to get the kid out of there. Also, the big thing they establish, I forgot to mention this, the big thing they kind of establish is that there's a friend of his being held hostage by Sirius. He's trying to help him out with that on the loop before, but it doesn't work out because he has a heart attack. But this time, it might work because Reinhardt's there. Except he forgets one very crucial thing, and that's that he doesn't fully know Sirius's ability, because Reinhardt attacks Sirius, and this is where we learn a third part of the ability, which I guess was more obvious in a way because Sirius was kind of happy almost and trying to get people to cheer on the kid with the first loop. At least I feel like it was almost more obvious there. So it makes sense that this idea is now established here, that yeah, if Sirius dies, everybody else does, because immediately everybody in the area, with the exception of Reinhardt, gets a huge fucking just sword gash right across their entire fucking body, and they're all just dead. That's it. That's another loop for them, and it's damn. All right, this is a problem. How the fuck do we deal with this character? This character is absurd in terms of how strong they are. We gotta figure out what the fuck to do with this person, and this becomes a real big problem. And the worst part is, this shit just gets worse for them as it goes on. So alright, so next loop. Subaru, Beatrice, Amelia, they're all gonna figure out what they can do, because the big thing is, oh, Beatrice could use Shamrock. Amelia could throw a fucking icicle at Sirius, and hey, if she uses Shamrock, nobody in the area gets affected, and then Sirius dies. Simple solution. Except that shit doesn't work out, because it turns out this ability is not magic related or anything. Makes sense? Wish factor. Makes sense that, yeah, that wouldn't be affected by it. And also, out of nowhere, Sirius is pissed. Which, by the way, this is also another thing that I kind of expected, was just, oh, Sirius is really, I'm almost going to say happy with a majority of this. Sirius doesn't really seem angry or anything, especially for somebody who is wrath. It's kind of weird. But I had a big feeling in my mind that, oh, it's going to be Amelia or Beatrice that she gets mad at. I don't know why. I just felt like, oh, it's probably these two. I feel like I almost want to say with their viewpoints, it's kind of weird to explain, but I felt like it would line up perfectly with, oh, these two would probably be the ones she gets angry with. And, oh, what do you know, it's both of them. I was thinking like one or the other. No, it's both of them. I kind of perfectly called that entire thing. Anyways, Amelia and Sirius start getting into a fight. This is a weird moment, right? Because I normally would cut this out. It's just kind of funny. wallpaper there just completely changed to something that I was about to talk about in a moment. It's slightly funny. I don't even know if I should turn the camera that way. I'll you know what? I don't need to talk about it yet. Well, I'll talk about it in a moment. It's funny that happened. It threw me off guard for a moment. So anyway, Sirius and Amelia start fighting. The crowd is sharing the same opinion as Sirius because of her ability, and it's kind of like, I'm almost gonna say like it's an unconscious type of thing of her ability's activated, and I don't think she actually is like, I don't think she's actually trying to use it in this way, but it's just happening because of her sheer rage, and she's not thinking about the fact that she's using it, but it's happening, and they're kind of attacking Subaru and Beatrice, and this is creating a problem. They gotta deal with the crowd that they don't want to injure because these are innocent people, and this fight's going on, and this fight's kind of a bad thing happening. And what's especially bad about the fight is that Amelia almost fucking dies until fucking Regulus, who I forgot to mention showed up in Volume 1. I forgot, they mentioned it twice, in fact, from different perspectives, and I totally forgot that happened in Volume 1 somehow. But yeah, he showed up there, he met them, walked away, did not state his name or anything, he just met them. He said to Amelia that, oh, like, you look so pretty and beautiful and all that, blah blah blah, be my wife, all that shit. Right? The same shit he said to Fortuna, and also speaking of Fortuna, I'll bring up something in a moment, but, you know, all that shit, he walked away, and now he's back, he's here now, he protected Amelia, and she's now unconscious, and he's gonna take her away. And now this begins a fight between Sirius and Regulus because he's trying to protect her and Sirius wants to fucking kill her. So now they're having this infight and everything, which immediately makes you realize, oh, the archbishops don't fucking like each other. Which makes sense in a way. They all have their own views, whether it be just like in general or via like, you know, the idea of love and all that and everything. It makes sense in a way that they almost have this infighting type of thing. But it's really interesting to see pretty much like all of them just disagree with each other, with one exception, and that's about to, like, I'm about to explain that in a moment. But it's interesting to see that not all of them pretty much agree with each other. They actually make fun of each other a whole lot. And it's like almost to a degree where they view themselves as the perfect ones, and every other archbishop there is just like, whatever, right? Fuck off, right? To them. It's like, it's kind of interesting to me. I like that. It really establishes something big of, okay, these people are working together here, but at the same time, they almost don't want to. So it's neat, in my opinion. So then while those two are fighting, then Subaru steps in because he also wants to rescue Amelia, and he does not at all trust her in the hands of a fucking Sin Archbishop. Somebody who is probably going to use her, seeing as this was kind of their whole big thing, was using her to likely resurrect the witch, Wendy. So, you know, obviously he doesn't want this to happen. Also, he just wants to protect her, full stop, but, you know, the bigger almost issue here is this could lead to a large problem for the entire world. So he starts fighting Regulus, he uses the unseen hand, and this creates a big thing for Sirius, where Sirius almost like protects him in a way when Regulus tries to attack him, because it turns out, oh, Sirius and Betelgeuse were lovers. And this is where I'm going to bring up the Fortuna thing. This is a complete theory that I've noticed a lot of people have, and I immediately, of course, came to this idea because, yeah, there's a lot established here. I feel like completely that, you know, Sirius is Fortuna. There's more evidence I'm going to say to this later that I'll get into, but it feels like a very clear idea that's established here almost, that, yeah, this is the same person, you know. as Fortuna, especially with the fact that, you know, it's a fire versus ice battle when she's fighting Amelia, which, two things about that, of course. Fire also counts as ice within this world, right? There's no real ice element, it's just fire, because it's like temperature control in a way. So it's either you make fire, you make ice, and it's also, those two are the complete like polar opposites in terms of elements as well, right? It's, you know, cold versus heat colliding, makes sense, right? So this is almost an opposite of what Fortuna was, since she used ice. Furthermore, her entire drive here is to kill Amelia, which I know is mostly because she sees her as the witch, right? Or at least associated with that. But I feel like that is also partially this whole thing of, here's another opposite, where Fortuna acted as a mother to Amelia, whereas this is a character who just wants her dead. And this feels like an absolute opposite of that. As well as just like, I'm almost gonna say looks. The very clear thing is she has like long, silverish type of hair that we can see going through it a little bit. And it's like, it really does feel like it's her. I guess we might even find out further when it gets animated, depending on if they keep the same voice actor. I feel like they won't, because I feel like if they do that, that'll really drive it home, but I don't know. Also, one thing I kind of want to slightly mention, not really huge, but it's definitely there. There's also something else that I just got reminded of that I should mention for this theory, but let me talk about the one minor thing first, is the fight between Sirius and Regulus. This is kind of similar to the previous one, and hear me out when I say this, because I know that sounds like some fucking crackhead theory type of shit, but I more so mean this as, when these two originally fought, it was this big moment, or maybe not big moment, but it was pretty much what established Regulus's whole thing of, he takes women as his wives, because he mentions this to Fortuna, and she just tries to tell him fuck off and attacks him, right? And this is almost this kind of opposite type of moment, where he's just telling her, like, he's telling her this time to fuck off. Doesn't he? I mean, we don't know if it is her and everything, right? So maybe he doesn't even know, so it's this weird scenario. I mean, fuck, I don't think he does, considering some things said later, but whatever. But it almost feels like this, like, once again, an opposite scenario, where, oh yeah, this character is acting like, no, I would fucking kill you rather than, you know, make you my wife or something. And I don't know. Weird thing I just wanted to mention. I felt like that was almost a thing there. But also, the biggest thing to mention is her love for Betelgeuse, because it's right fucking there. I don't think I need to explain why that is a big point. I think you just know why that feels like a big point towards the theory, but, you know, it's there. That's all I have to say about that is it's there. It makes it feel more obvious. It really does add to it. And yeah, and I'll have another point soon. We're just gonna get further into Volume 2. So now, out of a complete desperation to do something, because Subaru's kind of fucked in this scenario, he's being attacked by Regulus, and these attacks aren't exactly easy to stop. And Sirius, you know, she's not exactly the most sane person, right? She, in a way, wants to protect him and love him, but it's a weird, of course, view of that and everything, and it's not exactly correct. It's you know, it's what you would expect out of her, but out of complete desperation, he takes out the gospel. They both also take out the gospel, and now they have directions of what to do. Supposedly, right? That's something we still don't know a huge amount on. It's just what the fuck that shit says, especially because their versions aren't the correct ones, I'm gonna say, right? We know the two bigger ones that there are that are now gone, so these are, it's something I definitely want to know more about, is what the fuck, like, those ones say. I don't even remember. if they at all showed anything with the third arc, when Subaru opens it up. I think he opens it up at one point, I could be wrong. But really, it's just, we don't know what happened in it, but they were told what to do next. Regulus attacks Subaru, and unfortunately, because of Sirius's ability, everybody in the area is hit with the same wound. And this is real bad, because this is a wound that could kill him, and also everybody else, if it is not treated. So then Beatrice uses everything she can of her mana to essentially heal that, as well as heal everybody else. And this makes a new problem for Subaru, because once again, his sidekick, who, he needed to have there in order to get shit done, is now comatose. This is the second time this has happened. Fuck. So now already, this is a really bad situation that is established in this arc. And this is what really got me to love this arc. I don't know if I already said it in the intro. It's been a few days since I made that intro, in general, so I don't remember what points I actually said. But this volume absolutely made this arc my favorite, and it's just what really drove it home for me, right? What really drove home that idea that, oh yeah, I know this arc's my favorite now, because of simply just from this volume that I've now read. It was this entire scenario of just how fucked everything is, right? Because already there's 2 archbishops around, and 2 really fucking strong ones at that. Super dangerous, all that shit. Beatrice is now comatose. That's a problem. His fucking sidekick is now gone. So, what the fuck is he gonna do other than, use his whip, maybe? And also, his leg is now heavily injured, right? Subaru's leg is just fucked now. He can barely run, right? He can kind of walk, but it'll be painful. It's a really bad scenario right now, and it gets worse because we find out about I'm gonna say casualties, right? There's people injured. I don't even think there was any dead, but I think there was a decent bit injured. And we get even worse news when Garfield comes through the fucking door holding Mimi, who, by the way, also something I forgot to mention, is this neat, cute little almost relationship type of thing established, maybe not relationship, but you know what I mean, of Mimi trying to be super nice to Garfield, and Garfield kind of getting annoyed by it with Volume 1. You see it briefly, you see it the most here though, but he comes through the door with her completely bloody, pretty much on the verge of death, and this is a new problem. She's almost about to be dead. So are her brothers, because this is some shit of they have a protection where they all kind of share the pain and everything and all this. Not entirely sure how that's helpful. I might have to look up what that does, right? But that doesn't seem super helpful, because if she dies, they die. So, damn. But the bigger thing that happens with this chapter is the introduction of another archbishop. And this is the other one that I was saying, I hold in a similar regard to Sirius. But here's the thing, right? With Sirius, my biggest thing was, this is a really cool fucking ability, and this character might be Fortuna, which adds so much holy shit, this is huge for story building and all that and everything. This works really well. This is great. This actually adds to the villain a whole lot if this is the case, right? This villain though is something interesting, because this is a complete scumbag villain, right? If you don't know what I mean by scumbag villain, I mean a villain who absolutely just makes you angry, right? Their whole purpose is to just make you angry. Because there's all sorts of different types of villains, right? Some that you'll maybe see some eye to eye with on certain points, some that just seem really cool, all that. But then of course there's a scumbag villain whose entire purpose as an established character is to just make you angry. And they do a great job of that. But there's also so much more to them that I cannot explain yet. Partially because, I want to get to that point. And also because some of it relates to shit that is not in this arc that I unfortunately, already know about. But it genuinely has me so fucking curious to know more about this character. More than we already know in general, full stop. I really want to know more about this character. But anyways, we get introduced to the Archbishop of Lust. Capella, forgot her last name, or middle name, don't remember how to pronounce it. Also don't even fully remember how it's written. I remember it starts with an E. That's the biggest thing. Lagunica. And immediately, your eyes would go to the last name. Yeah, that is something I didn't know about somehow. I went to her wiki page. I want you to fully know, I went to her wiki page before I started reading Arc 5, and I didn't even notice the last name. But there it is. That's a huge thing. And we don't fully know what the fuck is happening there. We've heard that in relation to that middle name and last name, there's some shit that was involved in the past about somebody named that, who was also killed, I think during the Demi-Human War. I don't remember exactly when, but they're dead, and that was the thing. So we don't know if Capella's related to them. We don't know what the fuck that, what this means. Just Capella's Lagunica, whatever, she has that last name, that's fucking huge. That's out of nowhere, and that really has me curious to know more about her. There's so much shit that I want to know more about this character, and half of it I can't even fucking discuss until I get to the Arc 6 video. And even then, I have to read through Arc 6. Fuck. So Capella gets established, she's an asshole. By the way, forgot to mention this, but I'm a fucking prophet, right? We've established this by now with the 2 points I've made previously. I've also established this in Discord whenever I do polls on Dokkan. Kind of unrelated, but I feel like it is related. Because those polls that I've done have always happened in a dream first, and then I did the poll in the game, and I got that to work. So I'm making a fucking bet right now, because this is really random. I genuinely just did not fucking it was one day where I was searching up voice actors, and this kind of just happened on the night after. I just had a dream like this, so I'm making a bet right now, and I've already decided what happens if I lose this bet. But for some reason, I had some profit level shit of this right here, future me, put up the name and picture of the voice actress that I think will be Capella. By the way, didn't remember the name, remembered the first name, didn't remember the full name though. It was there though. I even had to double check because that was one of the smaller details of it that I remembered, was just the full name that was there. And I had to check, and that was quite literally the same name. So if my fucking profit powers are correct, that's the voice. And if I'm incorrect about that when the anime comes around, I will fucking take a anime suggestion from one of my friends, doesn't matter what the fuck it is, and I will be forced to watch the whole thing. I may regret this. So now we get to go back in time a little bit to Garfield's scenario, where we're now going to learn about what the fuck happened to Mimi. We see the two of them hanging out. They're just walking, strolling across the city. They walk into a couple of kids who are going to fucking crash, possibly get injured, possibly die. And Garfield goes, he saves them, he gives himself the name Gorgeous Tiger. Cute little fucking cool name, whatever. It's cheesy, but it's great, right? They start calling him Gorgeous Tiger. One of the kids there who's walking home keeps calling him that and everything, right? He's no longer Garfield, he's just Gorgeous Tiger, that's his name now. Then, as he gets him home, the kid's older sister walks out, and she's scolding the child, as well as also, telling Garfield to get the fuck away because he's a stranger to them and everything, right? And it's this very clearly overprotective sister and everything, but it's it's fine. maybe not overprotective, because I guess that is like the correct thing to do if you see a stranger, but still. And then their mother walks out, and this creates a huge thing. I was not at all expecting this for like where the story was going, but fuck, it goes here. We get introduced to Garfield's mother. Again, she's alive. She's been alive this whole time. She has amnesia. At some point, you know, during the events of that flashback in Arc 4, the wagon crashed. She was still alive, barely. The name tag, I guess, that was on her had some slight dirt on it or something, so the name was kind of cut off. They didn't fully know what it was. A man found her, rescued her, took a guess on what her name was, right? She had amnesia, it was whatever. They had a family, bam, this is where we're at now. But the very clear thing here is, oh shit, that was very clearly Garfield's mother. All the, you know, dots fully connect to this of just, oh fuck, oh shit, she's still alive. And this is a problem for him. He can't say shit, because this will create a problem for that entire family, right? This will be a moment where they don't know what the fuck is going on, right? And they're kind of worried. It'll essentially break that whole family in a way, almost, if he were to outright say it. So he doesn't say shit, he walks away, he fucking cries into, like, Mimi's chest. It's a nice moment. It's a nice and sad moment, but it's like, it makes sense on why he does it. And it's almost great because, you know, Mimi is kind of like the more childlike character, but she gets to act like the adult figure in this scenario, I'm gonna say, which is kind of nice. It's neat, it works well. But shortly after this, the like day after, right, archbishops are doing their shit. Capella's making her first broadcast that we hear about, but you know, now we're actually getting to hear it instead of before, where it was kind of just like, oh yeah, it happened. Or I think we hear it here. If not, it might be later in Volume 4. Don't entirely remember. But it happens, and Garfield and Mimi go to take shelter. They find the mother, who then says her children and her husband are missing. Her husband being around City Hall, because he works there. And now this is a problem for them, because they want to, like, essentially rescue him. They want to keep that family intact in a way. So they run to City Hall, they try and go rescue him, and there's nobody there for a little bit until Garfield tries to make a move, and then two hooded figures show up, one very large and one feminine, and you know, now this is a problem for them. At least I already knew that, because I was sadly already spoiled about who these two were. At least the feminine figure, because I was looking up a character's wiki page and unfortunately read way too much. And by way too much, I mean I read the first paragraph and that shit was in there. I get it makes sense for it to be in there for the, like, I'm gonna say title paragraph of the page, but man, really? Really? So already, Mimi and Garfield can tell that this is a fight they can't win. This is a problem. This is a fight that is like, ooh, no, we should not be handling this. And they attempt a strategy of, okay, we're gonna make one big strike against them and then run. And that's the whole idea they have. Mimi gets a good strike in on the large giant man, and then Garfield goes to make a good strike on the woman, and he does it, but then he realizes, oh damn, her body's pretty light. And that is the moment where I was thinking to myself, Garfield, you fuck, don't be a dumbass, leave, I know exactly where you're going with this. And yeah, not surprising, he attempts to fight them. It doesn't work out well, he gets his shit kicked in. He tries to go into this, I think, from the way they worded it, I could be totally wrong about this, but from the way they worded it, it's this neat little hybrid form, I'm almost gonna say, of like, he's kind of becoming the giant tiger, but not really, he's staying more in a human form, but it's kind of like the tiger, if you get what I mean. Right? Interesting little form. I like the idea of that. still getting his shit kicked in, by the way. And then they attempt to flee, but before that happens, the woman jumps up, slashes Mimi, and now she just has that wound, and it can't be healed. And we find out shortly, like, why that's the case by Wilhelm, because he theorizes that this might be due to his wife's blade, or more so her protection. Which, immediately, the first thing you're thinking to yourself is, okay, what the fuck? What do you mean your wife, the dead character, the character we've established is dead? What? So now with this whole wild scenario established, that a huge problem, we don't even know what the fuck is going on with the shit Wilhelm said. That shit is wild. They essentially make up a team of people who will go to City Hall and try and recapture that. Because the biggest thing is City Hall. The broadcasting device that they have is located there, which is essentially just a speaker. It's really just a speaker, it's a magic speaker. But the whole point of this plan is to go to City Hall, get the speaker, and that way they can, reassure people that everything will be alright, as well as, they'll have City Hall back, and that's a big thing. Though, there's a couple of known things currently about City Hall. One, there's 2 hooded people guarding it, and 2, Capella is likely waiting there, since she was there during the first 2 announcements. She probably will be there for a while, considering there's going to be a 3rd one that's coming up, and they're going to try and stop that one from happening, and get, of course, their own broadcast out. So they make up a team of, I believe, Garfield, Wilhelm, Krush, Ricardo, Subaru, who had some, I'm gonna say essentially adrenaline type of shit, painkiller type of shit, just pumped into him so his light doesn't really bother him. And Julius, all of them head towards City Hall. And speaking of that background that I was pointing out earlier, I really fucking love the art in the light novels. There's some really good art there, and it almost throws me off sometimes when I watch the anime. I know that sounds weird, but it almost feels weird seeing the anime art style and then looking at the light novels. And I know there's a big difference between the two. One of them is, while a seasonal anime, an anime that they have to get out essentially weekly, right? There's an episode that's coming out weekly. Even though, of course, they can get that ready ahead of time, still, there's something to be said about that. Whereas the light novel, it's really just a few illustrations here and there, and that's about it, right? So I guess there's a difference in terms of how much quality you could really put in there. But I don't know, some of it just looks way fucking better in a light novel. I'll probably leave an example here of, I think, the speech Echidna has in Arc 4, and how the anime almost makes her look kind of weird. It's almost how do I even want to word it? I almost want to say stiff looking. She almost looks kind of stiff, very simple in terms of drawing, whereas the light novel, her hair feels very distinct. You can really tell, it's hair, right? In the anime, it almost kind of looks blocky, it's this weird, just white that's there. It's kind of odd, but the illustration for this, right, for the group just walking to City Hall, and the 2 hooded figures there, and then the other character who, I'll get to in a moment, it is so fucking good. I genuinely love this out of all of them. And I've noticed that every arc has this type of illustration where it's just this really good, obviously each and every arc, not even every arc, every volume has these, big 2-page wide illustrations to just show what's going on, and it's colored and everything. But I feel like every arc has these ones that have the Japanese and an English title on them, and all of them are pretty damn good. Especially, I feel Arc 5s, and I've also seen Arc 6s and 7s, and those 3 are really fucking good, in my opinion. I can't show 6s and 7s for reasons, but 5s is arguably my favorite, and this shit just looks good. the characters walking towards the city hall in, I'm almost gonna say like a One Piece type of style. I know that there's a lot of comparisons I could really make about this arc with One Piece, right? I could talk about the city and the fact that it's similar to a certain other one I know from there. This scenario almost also feels kind of similar to that in some ways, I'd argue. In some ways. But this is like the most like, oh, it's there. You can feel it. You see the characters walking and you can just feel that shit. And then you have like the villain side of things. And just the two hooded figures standing there. And then just right on top of City Hall, you just see it. And it is, having these two combined, it is so good. I love this illustration. So the fight to take back City Hall pretty much starts. Wilhelm gets to fight the female, who we think is Teresa Van Estrella. Garfield starts fighting the big dude there, that he was fighting earlier. And then everybody else kind of tries to head towards City Hall itself until they're interrupted by the laugh of an annoying woman, that woman being Capella. And the big thing with Capella is, you remember that whole last name she had there? The Lagurica whole thing, right? Yeah, interesting about that, right? Interesting thing about that. She can become a dragon, right? That illustration I put up on screen earlier, right? The thing I was pointing to at the top of City Hall, yeah, that's her. Yeah, she can turn into that, which was really fucking cool to me, because obviously a big already established thing with the series is, okay, characters can transform into just big animals that are really strong, right? Actually some One Piece type of shit. Of just, oh, here's the character normally, now they become beasts, right? Simple as that. But this one is like a huge one because this is just a fucking dragon. This is a character who became a dragon. So, alright, this is a problem, right? They now have to fight a dragon. And, her fire that she shoots kind of just stays there. It lingers. Even, that shit just doesn't get extinguished when it hits the floor. It's still going. She has the same sound shit as like Mimi and all them did. Also, she was watching Garfield's fight. She starts making fun of Garfield because apparently that entire time she was watching it. Guess it makes sense. She was in that area, but damn, that man gets even more fucking shit thrown on him throughout this volume. But eventually, I think it's Julius, I believe, lands a strike on her. It could have been Krush, but I think it's Julius who lands a strike on her with his spirits. She takes a pretty big fucking hit, falls down. Alright, now let's head into City Hall. They head in there, and now we have a new problem because we're introduced to fucking Roy Alfred. Yeah, Roy Alfred. I was trying to remember if I could pronounce that correctly. I did. I can't pronounce the other one because the big thing to point out here is this is not the same man as Lai. I don't remember how to pronounce Lai's last name, so I'm not going to try to. But the big thing to note here is these are not the two same people. You can immediately tell that just from visuals. Like, this isn't even me, stating a spoiler. This is just very clearly not the same person, right? These are two different people. So, alright, already, this is some fucking shit just being thrown at you. I already kind of knew about this. I had already known about the gluttonies, so, Unfortunate for me, I've already done my wiki searching. But hey, I like breadcrumb spoilers. Some people like breadcrumb spoilers. It's how it is. And I like that shit. But, yeah, he's here. Julius tries to fight him. So now it's just Subaru and Krush heading up there to, essentially get the speaker and just, seal the deal on this shit. They go up there, they see a dragon. Krush's immediate instinct is attack the dragon. Makes sense, right? That's Capella. There's a child on the floor who is just crying and everything. Don't worry, they're going to take care of that child, right? They're going to save that child from that area. Subaru goes to the speaker room, he opens it up, it's filled with a bunch of flies that are human sized. Okay, there's a problem here, and Krush is now screaming in pain, with her eyes rolling into the back of her head. Yeah, this was a trap. So we finally get to learn about Capella's ability, and this is like, just like serious, this is what adds to the character to me, and it's like, holy shit, this is cool as fuck. Her ability is really fucking wild on how it works. So not only can she transform into a dragon, she can essentially take any part of her body and just transform it into whatever. It, like, from almost what I understand, right, the way they almost write it, it feels like it's just any living thing, right? So if it's a flower, she can turn it into a flower. If it's the like head of a wolf, she can turn it into the head of a wolf. Whatever it may be, right? Can also, from what I understand, kind of just stretch out as far as she wants, right? It's this weird, like, she can deform herself, essentially, right? It's this weird shit where she can do that. But also, if it wasn't obvious, by the dragon that Krush attacked that may have not been her, and the flies in that room, she can do this shit to other people. She can transform other people into other things. She can also transform herself into other people in a way, or rather mimic what would be another person, right? She can't exactly fully just like, oh, I'm now this person, right? She kind of has to almost get the details down if she doesn't know the person. But if she's seen them, she can easily just go, you know, like that. Or she can just make up a person, right? Doesn't really matter. She can just do it, right? She can become somebody else. So, they've fallen for a complete fucking trap here, because that little girl was her. That dragon was somebody else. And the flies in that room are also people. And, yeah, she just totally fucking deceived them. Krush is in a horrible state. Subaru's kind of fucked here, because how the fuck is he gonna win against this fight? He lost. Really, as soon as this happens, the obvious thing that's implied here is that he loses. He's not winning this fight. And we then get the speech from Capella about her views of essentially what like love is. And this is really interesting to me. This is what added to how I felt about her as a villain and as a character and all that. Because this is a really cool viewpoint of love, where it's like she does not believe that there is such an emotion as love. More so, people feel lustful towards each other, and that's as simple as it gets. But if somebody did not look the way they did, if they were, for example, like what she did to those people, just giant human-sized flies, they wouldn't think of each other like that, would they? And it's not really correct at all, but there is almost a tiny bit of a point there, in a way. I'd almost argue, right? She goes on this weird tangent about it, and there's really not much of a point to it. It's this very skewed look of it, because it's a very clear, like, jealousy almost to, like, a feeling she has of jealousy, just hatred, all this, right? It gets me curious to know more about her and, like, this backstory, because a very clear thing with archbishops by this point, I'd argue, is these people were not born with these powers. They were given it somehow. And it makes me curious on what the fuck happened to Lust, or I guess Capella, really, that made her feel this way towards that. And just, like, honestly, the shit I know about Arc 6, right, and, like, you know, I can't discuss yet, it almost, in my opinion, explains a little bit of those events if she is also, I'm gonna say, like, mirrored to that in a way, right? If something like love was not shown to her at all, it would kind of make sense with the shit that's there, right? I really can't explain much about that right now until we get there, but when we do, I'll try and explain it. If not, I'll make a comment while editing the video, or in just comments of it, whatever it may be. I'll do that when we get there, but still, it is a really unique and kind of like cool viewpoint of love, because it does establish kind of how she is as a villain and how she really does almost in a way embody lust. She just wants people to love her and nobody else, right? Nobody else, like not a single other person. In a way, she almost mirrors the Witch of Envy to a certain degree with, you know, like Subaru and her, right? It's almost like that, but it's to an even more, like, crazier degree, I want to say. But anyways, Subaru tries to get Crush out of there, right? He tries to escape with her. They get hit, or rather Subaru does, in his foot, again. Well, I don't think it's his foot, I think it's his leg. But already his leg is, like, injured by this point. And it just gets worse. His leg's now injured, and Capella walks over to them and starts pouring her, like, black blood into them. And this made me fucking squirm in pain, right? Because I have no idea what this shit would feel like. But the way they write it, you can really just imagine what's going on. And it is horrid to think about. It is like the most painful shit to read. That is like, oh fuck, like I cannot imagine how this feels getting this shit poured into you. And the worst thing is that I thought about while this shit was happening, because I almost thought that the transformation stuff occurred because of this, right? Because of the black blood. And the horrifying thing would have been, Subaru would have been crippled here. Because I think, like, Capella's actually the most dangerous towards him out of any of the archbishops. Every other one would just fucking kill him, right? If they use their ability, he's probably just dead. Maybe with the exception of Gluttony. I guess Gluttony would be different, but I feel like Capella, though, is this really, like, hard counter to him. Because if she were to just turn him into, like, a fly, right? Now he's a fly. He's not dead. And he won't die. And now this is a problem, because he would just be stuck at that. And somebody else would have to figure out what the fuck to do. Like, he would be fucked as the main character. It's a legitimate horrifying thing to have Capella, like, in front of him. Because this is an actual problem. This could be what, like, gets him fucked over, and his return by death ability would not activate. It is scary. But now we're officially done Volume 2. This shit is great. Let's move on to Volume 3, which unfortunately doesn't have too much that's huge, but it's still decent. But, you know, man, Volume 2 is fucking great. I love this volume. Also, I mentioned the illustrations, and I just want to say all of them in this volume are really fucking good. I love all the illustrations in this volume. That's all. Let's move on to Volume 3. So the big thing we established with Volume 3 is everybody in the shelters is just currently in a state of just panic, fear, all that. Shit's going down real bad, and thanks to Sirius, some people are getting hurt, some people are fucking dead. You know, there's casualties, right? People are getting angry, it's leading to this shit. It's real bad. So, eventually they come up with the plan. Since they're all in City Hall still, they come up with the plan of using the speaker to try and motivate people. I should also mention, I forgot this happens first, we finally get to see how everybody is. Everybody's alright-ish. Crush is in a very bad state. She is incredibly sick because of the black blood. But, speaking of that black blood, Subaru's leg has just completely healed. It's now kind of black, but it's healed. And this is interesting, because this kind of just implies, we've kind of known for a while that the witch factor that he already has, right? It causes things to act differently in a way towards him, like unseen hand he saw and all that. And with Gluttony, he remembered like Ren and all that. And you know, now we see this more with something like Capella, where she shoved her blood into him, and it didn't necessarily make him sick, it didn't injure him or anything, it really just healed him. That's kind of cool that it will just do that, because this is already like oh okay, right? Well, she could hard counter him, her blood doesn't do much to him, and that's like, ooh, right, this is big. But all that's established. We also hear about the third blonde cast, which is essentially all of them have their own requests. Gluttony wants all the artificial spirits, aka like Beatrice, the one that Anastasia happens to have, which is Echidna, except it's not Echidna, nor is it the one that is dead, nor is it the Echidna that now exists that's, you know, called Omega. No, this is a fourth one that is a fox spirit that was made by her, possibly as a means to just continue her existence, quote unquote. It has no memories of her or how it was made, but it's there. I don't know what to tell you, and it's been there for 10 years, so, but yeah, that's established. Anastasia has that, so the Gluttony wants, you know, those artificial spirits. Greed wants to have his wedding with Amelia, right, and nobody interrupts. Sirius wants the Book of Wisdom, which is the shit that Roswell and Beatrice has, which turns out Otto fucking brought the remains of it and is trying to get it repaired in order to essentially see what the fuck Roswell is planning, because he's very clearly not a person to be trusted. He has his own goals, his own motives, and even though he's not going to try and, you know, shove that onto Subaru now with this whole bet, it's not like, you know, he's not going to do it anymore just because of that, right? It's been very clearly established. He's still going to go down his, like, goal and everything. And then Capella, with her request, which was just bring 25, like, couples or something like that, like 25 or 15, just right in front of City Hall. Just put them right in front of City Hall. Nothing bad will happen. Very clearly something bad is going to happen, especially with her viewpoints of love. She'll probably turn all of them into flies and then have them look at each other or some shit. But now those requests have been made, and the team decides, okay, we'll have a speech to try and motivate people. We get Subaru to go and do it, because none of them really, in a way, are either qualified nor do they feel like they are the absolute best. They feel like, you know, Subaru should be the one to do it. And it starts off how you would expect. It's kind of him putting himself down in a way, and everybody in the shelters becoming like unmotivated and all that, until he eventually, you know, starts to build it up and tells people to keep fighting and all that, to the point that people are just cheering and everything and like hoping for his victory and all that. Then we establish the teams of where everybody's gonna go, and now essentially, like, this volume is kind of more so to establish what the fuck is gonna happen for the next two volumes, where everybody's going, who's fighting what, who's handling, you know, who, all that type of shit. That's kind of all this volume is really about. And one other thing, but it's like a few chapters at the end. I'll get to it, of course. But it's really just this. It's kind of just characters being established of who they're all fighting, and that's about it. And as for that last little bit at the end, we find out where Amelia is, which is this just area somewhere with an S bed and everything, and a whole bunch of maids there. Except they're not maids, they happen to be Regulus's other wives, who he has, like, no care if they die, right? He views them as wives, but the very clear thing is they are essentially dolls. Like, the most perfect way to sum it up is they're dolls. They can't talk back, nothing, like, they essentially can't do anything at all, not even smile. They just sit there and look good, right? And it makes you really realize how fucked up this man is. Like, you already kind of know from all the shit he's done how fucked up he is, but it really gives you an idea of, alright, this man's an asshole, right? He feels like everything is infringing on his rights if it doesn't go his way, and now this shit, it's just like, okay. And Amelia, of course, gets pissed off when he almost kills one of them, one of the more important ones. I'd say more important just because, like, from a story perspective, it's not really important in terms of, I guess, all of them in a way. But, you know, from the way the story kind of goes, this is the most important one. Amelia gets upset. He almost attacks her, only for Reinhardt and Subaru to interrupt. And this is where that fight begins. And this is also where the volume ends. It ends as soon as this shit starts. They really establish a whole lot just during that middle bit of it. I forgot to mention something about Volume 3, and that's pretty big. And it's the confirmation of who those hooded figures were. As well as also something else Subaru does with Krush. I forgot this was here because there's colored art of it, but there isn't actual art. And I was kind of going off the art. I had my own notes written down, but there's so many notes that I didn't feel like going off of those. I felt like it would be easier to go off the art. And I mean, it was for the longest while, but you know, it became a problem here. Anyways, the more important thing is the warriors and all that. So we find out that the two hooded warriors, one of them was indeed correct, Teresia Van Estrella. This is holy shit, right? This is like, how is this person still alive? I mean, we find out shortly, but it's like, okay, that's something. And then the other one is a hero of Wallachia, Kurgan, who, you know, he's neat. I like him. He's a cool big 8-arm man who's just, you know, big, strong, and fucking Jiren. Even though, you know, Jiren's kind of only fucking great as a meme and not really, you know, actual character. He's a funny man. He's actually better than Jiren because, you know, doesn't feel like they're trying to make him a character. Though I will say, considering Arc 7 takes place in Wallachia, that's not really a spoiler to say. I'm just saying the fucking location. I'm not giving more than that. I am interested to know if we learn more about him. I am interested to know if we're going to learn more about him. If we already have. I'm not at that point yet, of course. But, you know, I'm interested to know more. And about Krush, since I also forgot to mention this, Subaru attempts to, essentially he's talking to Krush in this moment. And, you know, she's called him in, they're having a talk. There's not really a whole lot going on in terms of a talk, they're kind of just saying a few words, especially because it's hard for her to speak. And Subaru attempts to put his arm, or I guess his hand on her, and immediately some of the like black blood stains on her get immediately swapped over to him. And this pretty much establishes that, oh shit, he could just take them, although this might be a problem because it's slightly painful to take them. It's not really painful to just have them on, it feels like nothing, but taking them like is painful. And also, now he just has a giant black mark there. He's eventually going to be covered in this shit. He's going to look like Virgo if he just keeps this shit up. Alright, so now moving on to Volume 4. We essentially get the start of all the fights. We'll finally get to see all this shit. Also, you may have noticed there's something I didn't mention about Volume 3 that's kind of established there. I'll get to that. You already know there's a section there with Volume 4. I'm going to talk about that character, and that is going to be part of it, right? I'm saving it for that. But all the fights start, shockingly, Subaru's fight, right? Subaru, Reinhardt, and Amelia versus Regulus starts and ends in this volume, which is kind of shocking because it's weird to have a main character, especially like with this scenario, right? With this series, it almost feels weird to have the main characters fight and the first. Like, I don't think anybody else's fight ended first, come to think of it. I think this is the one that ended the first. And it's a decent fight, honestly. Like, it's neat, right? Because there's not much they can do in this scenario. Regulus essentially has another ability that his wives, in a way, are also his heart, right? He can't be damaged at all because his heart isn't beating, because their heart essentially is his. So, in order to solve this, Amelia freezes all of them. Bam, they're now all frozen. that stops, except now she is the heart, and Subaru has to use the unseen hand to essentially go inside, and like, from what I understood, there was a second heart to it, and he explodes that. Also, she knew that he was using the unseen hand. She knew that that was fucking Juice's ability, which is what? So she knew about this. This was something shocking to me. It was, oh shit, she knows. She knows he's there. What? That was like fucking out of nowhere, and of course Subaru doesn't know because he doesn't know who the fuck Juice is. But you know, oh shit. And then after that, Regulus essentially loses that ability. I also should mention, if you already didn't understand his current ability, you know, and you're just watching this because I mentioned, you know, you could watch this if you really just don't care about spoilers. You know, suit yourself, right? But his first ability is really fucking unique and cool. I like it a lot. Because it is something stopped in a moment's, like, time, essentially. It is whatever it may be that he throws or just uses, right? It could be dirt, water, his own fucking breath is like, he can stop it and then just throw it in the direction of something, like kick it, whatever it may be, right? Hitting it in some way in a direction, and then it just goes, and because it's like kind of stopped in that time, it just pierces through instead of, you know, just hitting the target, right? So like dirt, that would normally just be like, oh no, you got dirt on me. It just destroys your fucking body because the particles are essentially like this fucking like atomic bullet that is just going right through you. So that's a really fucking strong ability. You kind of see it, you know, in Arc 4 and at the end of Arc 3 with him using the breath version against Ren, and then using the like dirt stuff where he picks up a good scoop of dirt and throws it right at Pandora. You see it there, but you don't fully understand it. Now you get to fully understand it here. But after that whole thing, you know, now his heart is his own. Oh shit, he's gonna fucking lose. Except he can stop his own heart for about 10 seconds, which is definitely strong, right? It's still like he has that ability, it's still strong. But it creates a problem for him, because he's still a regular ass human being, and first of all, deactivating his heart, that's already a problem. Then reactivating it, that is insanely painful. So he's already going through hell just trying to do that, right? Eventually, they get the upper hand, Reinhardt hits him so fucking hard that he goes flying into the ground, and he's now underground, like he's in the underground of the city, where he's being like fucking drowned, and eventually he drowns. He remembers who Amelia is. He remembers he saw her in the past, back with, you know, the whole thing I mentioned with Pandora and all that. He remembers her from there. Amelia does not remember him at all, and that's how that fight ends. I didn't really talk about the whole fight as a, like, you know, a whole lot, because I said a lot there, but there's not a, like, I almost said it again, but there's not a whole lot. There isn't a lot there that I feel like kind of stood out. I know that sounds bad. I genuinely like this fight a lot, and I would go more into it, really, but there isn't anything that super stand out. The only thing I would almost say is Amelia convincing the wives to tell them, or not tell them, but rather tell her their names. That moment's really great. It's a big moment for her, because it shows that the wives feel like they can't get out of this situation. He's that strong that people have tried in the past to get them out of this situation, and it has not worked out. And after some talking, you know, you find out that, of course, all of them hate Regulus and wish he was dead, and some of them, like, it's tragic to actually fucking read some of the words they say, because you get to hear, like, what happened to them, and it's like, oh shit, right? This guy's a fucking asshole, like, he really is. And yeah, that moment is really good. But other than that, I don't feel like there was any too standout, you know, moments in there, right? There's nothing too big, except for this one that I made an image of, because this is just Huey. This is just Huey Emmerich from MGS5, but fucking Regulus. This is just him. I had to make this image immediately as soon as I read that fucking moment. That was way too good. And now we move on to the other fights. First, I'll start with autos and gluttony, because I also forgot to actually kind of mention earlier. Lai shows up here. He's here. He's been hanging out. He fucking took down Kiritaka, the guy who's the merchant, trying to give him the puck shit, all that, the shit for puck. I worded that really badly at the start there. Don't do anything related to that, right? But, that guy, he got fucking mugged by Lai, and so did a few other people that are protecting him. But now Otto is fighting Gluttony along with Felt, and one of Felt's servants, I guess, if you want to call them knights. Maybe not knight, because I guess knight would be more Reinhardt, but you know what I mean. And also Kiritaka, who's there. And they're all here, trying to fight Gluttony. This is a really bad scenario, especially because, Gluttony is the way he is. He could easily fucking take out these people. No problem, most likely. This is a really difficult scenario, especially because some of the white dragon scales, I believe they're called, like the dudes who are protecting Kiritaka and all that, and are taking orders from him, some of them get their names eaten, and it's like, oh shit, right? They're already getting their names eaten. And we find out that Gluttony, for the longest while, I thought he was a jobber. I'm gonna be totally honest. His ability just seemed like, okay, he takes your memories if he knows your name. Which I already knew about, the he knows your name. Like, if he knows your name part, he can take it, right? Kinda already knew about that, and I searched it up. I just occasionally look for breadcrumbs. It's just how I am. But that seemed like that's all it was. I never really looked further into it until I was reading it, this fucking these chapters, and it made me realize, oh, he can then take the memories of those people and just use their moves, and it doesn't matter if it's like physical type of thing, if it's magic, whatever it may be, he can just use it. And that is really fucking scary, because he could actually be really super strong if he just takes enough. And the only people he doesn't know the names of there are Otto and Felt, who this entire time, I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? We learned about this incident where she was supposedly kidnapped around the same time that the white whale fight happened with Teresia, so it's like, I guess this adds up. But we learned this entire time that she's essentially been given this, like, code name. Like, Felt isn't her actual name, it's just an alias to essentially hide from who she actually is. At some point we may learn that, we probably will. It seems like it's a pretty damn important fucking plot line, but, for now, she just has the name Felt, so Gluttony doesn't know her, and then Otto, he just doesn't know full stop, because none of the memories of the people he has inside of him have met Otto. So, hey, Otto's safe, for the moment. We also, just out of nowhere, this gets brought up, and I was not expecting this character to be brought up now, right? Maybe an arc later I was expecting it, but they bring up Melee, and that was out of nowhere. Supposedly, one of the dudes there, one of the higher, I'm gonna say, dragon scales and all that involved some shit about protecting her, like he was trying to protect her, as well as some other character we don't know about. There was something that happened there. He failed to do so. I'm really curious as to see what the fuck that means. That's like already a huge thing. I want to know. But eventually, by the end of this, Beatrice shows up to save the day. She's back. Kiritaka helped out, right? And now Beatrice is here to also engage in the fight. And speaking of Gluttony, we see what's happening with the other Gluttony fight between Julius and Ricardo versus Roy. Not a whole lot, honestly. There's actually not a whole lot that happens there. The biggest thing that gets brought up is Roy constantly referring to Julius as his brother, which there's an entire side story about this. The website, the Witch Cult translations, all that, they link to it because it is something that you will not know about just reading through the chapters on your own. I also recommend, if you're going to end up reading those chapters because you haven't already, or you happen to have read them, right? But you needed more context towards that scenario, I recommend reading that, although I'm also going to explain it right here. The big thing that it's essentially revealed is Gluttony took the memories of Joshua Juculius, and he was a character that was established in Volume 1. I forgot to mention that. I forgot to mention it because he's not much of an established character. He kind of gets established there, and we don't see him again until that point. And it's like, I want to feel bad. In a way I do, because Julius becomes a better character in this arc. But it's like, man, this character was not built up enough for me to actually kind of care. And it kind of sucks, right? But, yeah, his memories are gone. He's comatose. So, yeah. And Julius doesn't, of course, know him, because memories are gone. So it's a weird scenario for him, and all that. But that's overall how that fight's going. And now we can move on to the other ones. So Wilhelm and Garfield's fight kind of continue here. There's not a whole lot to Wilhelm's. We kind of just like see more of the battle going on, and it's, you know, confirmed to be Theresia Van Estrella. We see her face and everything by this point. But there's not a whole lot happening to that. With Garfield though, it's a bigger deal because Capella completely fooled them. They were all going to separate towers for this whole operation, since the big thing is, hey, if one of those towers is destroyed, this entire city goes boom, and they're all just waiting by the towers, so we can just go there and simply handle it. Except Capella did not do that, because why would she, right? Why would she stay in that place when she could just go back and take City Hall when all the forces have separated? So Garfield tries to retreat back, all the way back to City Hall, gets stopped by Kurgan. He's now getting in a fight with Kurgan. That's kind of going on. That fight doesn't end yet. You're going to have to wait a whole volume for that. But now we move on to Capella. Because Capella's fully gone to City Hall. She's started attacking Felix. I mean, Felix is kind of like trying to attack her, but he's not very skilled. And she gave Felix a free hit. Except, you know, she disguised herself as Krush just to fucking like insult him and make him feel bad and all that shit. And then started strangling him with a like flower. Essentially, she turned her hand into a flower and started strangling him with it, and like trying to crush his body, only to get immediately fucking destroyed with half her face like just being blown the fuck off. Like the skin. Ooh, wording on that. Ooh, the half of the skin on her face gets just blown off by Anastasia, who's there, who's essentially dressed up as Krush to kind of fool her, because Capella was just gonna, you know, take care of Krush there, but she completely fools her by making it look like she's Krush, and then Capella falls right through the floor onto the ground. And this moment I want to talk about because I don't see a lot of people mentioning this, and I don't know if my assumption on this was correct. I think it's correct. It would make sense considering certain things I'm not going into. But Capella at the very end of this takes on a transformation in terms of like her hair, her chest, everything, her eyes, right? That it very clearly seems like they were hinting at her transforming into a specific character, and I'm not going into why or how she knows this character and all that, but you know, very clearly feels like they were trying to say she was turning into that character. I won't have confirmation until either the anime comes out or it's just like confirmed by somebody, but it does feel like that, and it would make sense that none of these people recognize who this person she became is. It's just a whole thing. I think it's really neat. Really, I shouldn't know this shit, but I do because I've already spoiled myself. But if this transformation is what I think it is, that's really fucking cool. And for somebody who, you know, doesn't know about this, I'm actually curious to see what their reaction would be like. So that's definitely something that has me curious. But then we get the fight between Al and Capella, since Al was actually told to stay behind. And now these two are fighting, and this is a like kind of weird battle where Al's trying to dodge everything she's throwing at him, and it's weird because he's perfectly dodging everything. I sadly know why. You know, I've seen the side stories and all that, but you know, he's making some good dodges on her and everything, she's kind of confused as to what the fuck is going on how he's able to dodge all these attacks well enough that he can survive. And he's trying to fucking destroy her, even though it amounts to nothing, because her regeneration that she has is absurd. It is absurd on, like, just how well she could get her entire body back. And it kind of just amounts to, she becomes a dragon, attempts to hit him a few times, he manages to avoid it decently, and then she just leaves. She ditches. It's whatever, right? She's done there. At this point, most of their members are kind of failing. It's whatever. She's just gonna leave and do her own thing from here on out. And Al just returns all the way back up to realize that, oh, Anastasia isn't Anastasia. It's Echidna taking over Anastasia's body. And that's kind of big. Like, shit, she can just take over the body, huh? That would explain why she did that huge attack. Especially considering Anastasia's usually in the top 5 weakest characters, yet somehow she did that. Yeah, that explains a whole lot. But now, we move on to the last fight. Here's the last, section before Volume 5, because I'm sure some people might have been waiting for this, so here we go. So some interesting context to give to this whole scenario. I started Arc 5 back in July. I started this fucking arc just right after, like a whole month after I had watched Resume, right? Watched it all in 3 days. That was fucking great, right? Did it all for that time. Had some horrible sleep during that time, mostly because, I was staying up watching it. But overall, watched it, loved it, decided I was gonna, I'm gonna keep reading, even though it's a novel and that almost feels weird, because I'm used to reading mangas when I continue a series. Whatever, I'll read the novel, that's whatever. I started in July, or it might have even been August. I'm not entirely sure. It might have actually been August. I read it via the light novel. Whenever the light novel came out, to the West and everything, that's when I started reading. I read it around then, and it definitely had a slow start, but I expected that. But I slowed down a whole lot. And there's one big reason why. And that's because Liliana was introduced as a character. And oh my god. She sucks. So here's the thing. You can write an annoying character who doesn't feel like they're badly written. Like, I would argue almost Regulus was an annoying character because he would constantly go on and on about his speeches, but he was written well enough that I felt like his speeches were kind of funny sometimes, and also like, yeah, this is the perfect amount of, he's kind of getting you angry with it. He's well done, and all that. But there's sometimes where you try to do that with a character, it just might not work out, and they might just feel like an annoying character. And that is perfectly how Liliana feels. She does not at all feel like a character with a bigger idea than she is just annoying and she makes music, right? And I almost thought that was a problem with just Volume 1. Because in Volume 1 I was getting annoyed with the chapter or two dedicated to that shit. But, it was whatever. I could brush it off, even though that was multiple pages, because the chapter and 2 in the light novel is 4 chapters of some shit, in the online stuff, the web novel, essentially. So, decent difference there, but you know what, it was whatever. It was whatever. I could go with it. It was fine, probably, because obviously I felt like her stuff would get better later. Funny thing, I was warned about this when I was done Volume 2. I didn't know I was warned. I didn't even pay attention to the message I received about it. I just kept going. And, oh man, okay, these chapters sucked. Liliana as a character is just not great. It doesn't feel like anything about her is written that well. Like, Priscilla in these chapters felt fine. Priscilla felt like, you know what, she's a character you'll get angry at, but whatever. This is like a character who's already established, they do their job well, whatever. Then you also have Sirius here, right? Their fight is against Sirius. And this is a fantastic villain. I really like this villain. So these two characters clashing, you know, that's pretty great, and we learn more about Priscilla and her like blade that she has and everything. It's like, oh, this fight is perfect. But then you get Liliana here, and it doesn't feel like she adds anything at all. Her perspective, like in terms of just how it's written, because essentially the chapters are written from her POV for 75% of them. The last one is not written in her perspective, and it's so much better. But oh my god, every time you see her talking in her own mind about the events going on, it is so annoying to read. I actually fell asleep reading that shit. It was awful. And it becomes worse when we get to the actual fight, and she doesn't know what to do for some reason. She just feels like she's running around in circles, just not knowing how to fix this problem, even though Priscilla very clearly states, hey, this villain right here, if you play your song, we don't have any problems with the like casualties or anything. They won't have any problems. Just play your song, and I do the fight, and there is nothing to lose. And Liliana just runs in circles essentially for that whole time, and then she's like, oh no, there's fire. Oh, the fire's hot, except the fire's not actually hot. And what the fuck are we doing with this character? And I know that this character has some side story content to read, and that almost makes her better. Also, her backstory was decent. It wasn't that bad. It did feel like the weakest out of all the backstories I've seen in the series, but you know what? It wasn't the worst, right? It wasn't bad or anything. I felt it was decent. But I know some of her character, I'm going to say, is part of the side content. But here's the thing. What I feel, right, from the perspective of writing, and maybe I don't know shit because I'm not a writer, right? There's a good chance. But I feel like if you want somebody to read side content about a character, they need to be interested about a character. Like, two big characters that have been established by now in the series. One of them, you know, I mentioned a little bit, and also that they perhaps will be in an arc that I might have to talk about next, as well as one of them who is now dead. They have their own side content, and I'm already so intrigued by all these connections they have and everything, and all that shit that I already know about, that I'm like, damn, I want to read that side content, because this will build on them more. I will feel more, like, focused on these characters and want to know more about them and all this shit, and they might be raised as characters for me, right? That's how I feel, because if I'm intrigued by a character, I obviously want to read more about them. This does not feel like the case with Liliana. Liliana just seems like an annoying character who was not really done well at all. And when I hear, well, the side content that makes it better, I don't feel intrigued to read the side content because I already don't like the character. I don't feel intrigued at all to see, well, what could be better for this character? Fucking nothing, because I already don't like them. So this creates a huge problem for me, because this character just does not mean shit. But anyways, at the end of it all, the fight goes down. Priscilla wins. She gets the kid that was there back that was being held hostage. I really wish this fight was better. This fight had the perfect fucking setup, and they really just had to shove in a character there that just was not done well. And now we're on to the final volume, and this is where the last few fights finally end. And I'm going to do them in a different order, similar to how I did with the previous volume, than, what the light novel and all that does, and the web novel, all that, just because I feel like it's better to show the bigger ones later and all that. But let's first start with Gluttony at the very top. So the end of the Gluttony fight with Beatrice and Felt and Otto and all them, they've pretty much established beforehand that they had a weapon, like a staff, or from what I understand, that is essentially called Meteor, and it was made by Echidna, like the actual witch Echidna, right? Beatrice's mother, all that. This is a fucking huge weapon that apparently not even Reinhardt can dodge this shit, and we learn why shortly in this chapter, because that shit gets fired towards Gluttony, and he can't evade it. It just tracks. It's a attack that constantly tracks you. And he eventually figures out a tactic where it's just, oh, if I cut my hair, that counts as me, throw my hair at it, and it explodes. He manages to just barely escape, and he also just escapes full stop, like he just leaves because shit, I'm in danger now. And we get introduced to a character who's been constantly hinted at throughout Volume 4 as well as now. I don't even remember if they were hinted at beforehand, but I think it was just Volume 4 and now, which is Louise Arneb, the final Gluttony of them all, the third one, the youngest of them all, and also female. Not much to say about her. She just mentions the Eclipse, which is an ability they have. Don't fully understand what that is yet. Don't know if I'll learn more about it in Arc 6, but something that gets mentioned. She talks about just, wait till we meet again, and then we'll eat you all, haha, and then they all leave, really. That's kind of just how that fight ends. There's not a whole lot there. It is good, though. It is definitely good. And really, you do get this interesting thing of, oh shit, here's the third one. She actually sounds more normal in terms of speech than the other two, despite being the youngest, but hey, it's whatever. And then we get the end of Garfield's fight, which is, from what we can tell, this brutal beatdown between Kurgan and him. They're constantly landing huge blows against each other until both of Garfield's fucking hands can't even be used, and then Kurgan's arms are really getting crippled, and it completely ends with Garfield just using his teeth to the very maximum to try and finish it, bites him in the neck, and it's so much of a desperate move that if that bite didn't kill, Garfield would be dead. That fight would be over, because he wouldn't be able to do anything to retaliate. His entire body was essentially just destroyed in that moment. And luckily, it does kill Kurgan. He says, marvelous, and then he falls back, which shows that these corpses can talk, which then tells you what a certain fight coming up is going to end with. Gives you a good hint towards what that'll be. But still, this fight is really fucking cool, and I can't wait to see this shit animated. Actually, this was entertaining as fuck. So yeah. And now we get Wilhelm's fight, and oh my god, this area. So, let's talk about the first few things, right? Because these are the minor ones compared to the entire chapter that I felt like was amazing. But let's talk about the minor stuff first, right? So, Wilhelm and Teresa are still fighting, all that. Doesn't end well for him, because he gets slashed in the leg, and by this point he's just gonna bleed out and die. That wound won't be healed. And then Heinkel shows up, or rather he shows up in the middle of the fight, already happening, but he's there, and now that Wilhelm's been slashed, he's no longer seen as a threat, so she immediately switches over to Heinkel to attack. Reinhardt out of nowhere shows up, which is a really bad scenario, because Wilhelm specifically wanted it so that Reinhardt didn't know about the situation, so that he wouldn't act on it. But now he's here, and he completely just fucking ends the fight in a single blow. He dodges a couple attacks, but he ends that fight in a single blow, and kind of gives it the justification of, well, I wasn't fighting her, right? He wasn't fighting his grandmother. He was fighting a corpse being used, right? And it's a really harsh explanation, but it's not untrue, and I'll go more into that after I talk about the best fucking chapter in this entire series. So I have not read any of the previous light novel chapters. You know, I've completely gone through the anime only for a while now, and you know, at some point I'll probably go back and read through arcs 1 to 4, but really I've just watched the anime and then seen cut content to make sure, okay, here's what I may have missed on each and every single one of the arcs. You know, overall, got a decent full experience out of it, but I never really checked to see, you know, if there was ever what really was the longest chapter. Though I'm going to assume that this one right here that I'm talking about, fucking Teresa's backstory, I'm assuming this one is the longest in the series. Probably so far. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But, oh my god, this chapter is amazing. It is actually my favorite moment in the series now. This fucking backstory, dude. This video is already probably long enough. I guarantee it might even be over an hour. I have no clue. Though considering both recordings are about an hour, I'm gonna assume it's over an hour in terms of like actual length. But like, holy shit. I can't even explain in words how good this chapter is. It's just way too fucking good. Like, if you straight up have not actually read it, right, maybe you're still reading through arc 5 and, you know, you're watching this video, or you're watching it not caring about spoilers, whatever it may be, like, unless you've already read it, right, I would legitimately highly suggest just reading this chapter. Like, if you really need somehow some convincing to read through the series because you want to, but you don't know what's up ahead and all that, read through this chapter. It's long, but oh my god, it is the fucking best moment in the series for me. This actually put her as the like number 10 spot on my favorite characters list. It is insane what that shit was capable of doing. This is a character we barely know shit about, and it's just like, this backstory just told us so much shit that it's like actually really good. I will point out some minor details, but oh my god, this chapter really had me going half the time just complete, and then the other half the time, oh. The biggest thing is I'll point out about this chapter is just the fact that we pretty much learn that she did not want to be the Sword Saint at all. And of course she got the Death God protection, and there's so much bad fucking shit that happens to her because she doesn't want to hurt people because of all like the two protections she has being a really bad combination, you know, for hurting people, because that just fucking kills them essentially. And her family around her is just slowly dying, trying to essentially like protect her from that. And it's like, fuck, dude. She gets into this like ruined state where she doesn't know what to do. She like hides in her own room for half the time and she's like starving and all that, right? And it's like, then she meets Wilhelm and we get like the arc 3 type of stuff, but then we learn more about it and like that she went into the demi-human war to protect him solely because he was there. And then we see the conflict they had in the third arc, but then it leads into her still doing the demi-human war and then winning, and then we see, you know, essentially them falling in love and getting married like we did in the third arc. And we hear about the children and all that, and then we finally get to see what happened with the White Whale mission, and oh my god, this made me feel some real fucking pain, because she goes on the White Whale mission. And one thing I want to mention here, I don't know if this is just something that I misread, or I just didn't understand it enough, right, and maybe like this is something that I didn't understand, but from what I understand, this was not a solo mission, which is something that always kind of bothered me in my mind, not as a like actual thing, but just in my mind it bothered me that, okay, she went on this mission against the White Whale and lost, but they remember her, right? all these people remember her. This wasn't like some person who faded away and nobody remembers who this character is. She, like, still exists, which was weird. And from what I understood from what they wrote here, there were people with her. The white whale got them though, and of course they were forgotten about. At least from what I understand, that's what it was. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it was a solo mission. And then it becomes really fucking clear on what happened, because a certain person who showed up to ruin a previous backstory shows up here too. Pandora shows up out of nowhere. She's here, and that cleared everything up in my mind. Because yeah, no, the white whale wouldn't be the thing that kills her. Sure, it could have eaten her, but really? I mean, I guess Reinhard did inherit the sword god protection at that very moment, right? So she was just a regular woman with a regular sword. Kind of an unfortunate scenario, but it didn't seem like that would be the correct outcome until, you know, Pandora shows up. They pretty much state that all she could see was darkness. It felt like her hands and legs were tied, and that she was drowning, or some shit like that. So from what I understand, Pandora tied her up and just fucking threw her in the ocean. And that was that. And it is like, holy shit. Because if this is the case, wow, Wilhelm did not get his revenge at all. He thought he got his revenge killing that white whale. No, that white whale did not have any involvement with his wife's death. It probably did the minimal amount of effort compared to Pandora. And also Reinhardt. And then after that whole scene, they flash forward to where Wilhelm's holding her before she turns to ash. And we get the scene with, you know, Heinkel, Wilhelm, and Reinhardt, and Heinkel's getting mad at Reinhardt, and Wilhelm's telling Heinkel to calm down, and Wilhelm's asking Reinhardt about his thoughts on what he did and everything about killing his grandmother, where he, you know, responds to the whole corpse thing. It's very clear that both their relationships is just like, it's fucked now, right? They can't speak to each other. But oh my god, the scene with Theresia, like, talking to Wilhelm before she turns to ash. You can fucking tell by my voice. And, like, possibly my face, I don't know. You might be able to tell. I can't really notice it with the webcam. But, fuck, dude. It is a really brutal scene. It is, like, this entire chapter actually had me tearing up a bit. Not even a bit. No, I fucking full on, you know. It fully happened during this chapter. It is such a good fucking chapter. This shit is so insane. It is actually sad. And it's like, damn, this is only halfway through. Not even halfway through. I think it's like around the start of this volume that this shit happens. And it's like, fuck, man. It is painful. And it's so fucking good. It's such a good chapter. Holy shit. And now we get on to the final events of the arc. Garfield and Otto are still recovering. They won't be able to enter battle for a while, so they're going to be out for the next arc. Subaru starts talking to Sirius, who they captured instead of killing, as killing could have been a problem, you know? So, he starts talking to Sirius, and we kind of learn from Sirius that the witch cult is essentially an organization without a higher up. I guess the only higher up being the witch, but, you know, there's no real higher up to them. They are all on equal footing with each other from what is, like, given in terms of information from the series, at least from what I understand. We get that information, so that's pretty fucking interesting. And then, of course, we learn about what happened with Julius and Ricardo. Ricardo lost his arm, which is not as bad in comparison to Julius, who lost his name. Yeah, fucking Gluttony got to him. They actually lost their fucking fight, which is like a shocking thing that happens at the end. And it very clearly feels like something went wrong because Anastasia says everything like is fine, everybody came back safely. But the obvious thing you can think of is, well, we haven't seen Julius's fight yet, and if he lost his name and also memories, but his name, yeah, no shit, everybody like would be back safe because they wouldn't remember him. Except he didn't lose his memories, but he did lose his name, so nobody remembers him except for Subaru. And, you know, now he's this just nameless knight who's, you know, according to Subaru, one of the big royal knights and everything, as well as Anastasia's, you know, knight. And she sadly doesn't remember. It kind of creates this cruel scenario for him where it's like, I'm already feeling kind of bad for him this arc, and now I just feel worse for him. It's like, fuck. But they pretty much divide the plan that, okay, we're gonna go see the sage of the fucking Pleiadius watchtower, Shawa, and we're gonna see what to do from there. She guards that place. She'll probably kill us because she kills anybody who enters there. But hey, we're gonna go see her. And that's, of course, the setup for Arc 6. Like, there it is, right there. You immediately have your setup. And essentially the last scene you get here in this arc, really, is just a scene between Subaru and Anastasia talking. And it turns out Anastasia this entire time, from that moment with like Capella where she burned off her face, to now, and also even further, has always been a kid now. She somehow cannot get out of Anastasia's body, it's just not working, and they're just stuck like this now. So Anastasia physically cannot come out, and this is just now a kid now who's pretending to be Anastasia, but this is how it is. So we're not going to see her for a while, and yeah, we have an even bigger fuck scenario of people who have lost their memories and all that shit, people who are now flies, and a dragon who are frozen, by the way. I probably should have mentioned that. They're also frozen, just for the sake of they need to figure out a solution. We'll probably get a solution from Shawa, and, you know, freezing them for now saves them until they have to unfreeze them, and then, you know, they might have a solution then. But there's a whole lot of problems here that they're going to try and solve with Arc 6. And that's overall, like, the end of Arc 5. The Subaru, Emilia, and Beatrice walk off, and they all head back to the carriage to essentially start Arc 6. And this arc is, like, actually fantastic, dude. It is easily my favorite. I've heard 6 is the absolute peak, and I can't wait to get to that and, like, go further. I mean, I am already technically there. I've already read, like, 5 chapters of it. But, you know, I can't wait to continue with it, see how it goes. And, yeah, then I'll be ready to make the Arc 6 video. And from there, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do, because 7 isn't finished yet. And, you know, I'll discuss that when we get there. When we get there, I'll go into that, because I want to see what you all would think of, like, some of the options I have ready. But I'm not going to handle any of that for now. That's all. And, yeah. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope, you know, this absurd length wasn't too much for all of you. I know it was big, and I did want to talk about it a whole lot. And the Arc 6 is probably going to be even longer if I had to guess. Like, really, it's going to be a decent bit of time for that. But, you know, I really enjoyed this arc. Hope you all enjoyed reading it, whether that was, you know, in the past, or maybe we were reading it along while I was also, you know, stating all these points for each and every volume. And who knows, maybe I even convinced you to read Arc 5 if you weren't already reading it and you were just looking forward to see spoilers. But just to go into it, because I actually don't fully remember my top 10 list. Like, I know my top 10 characters, but it's hard to sometimes remember who I put in each spot. So I'm just going to go over them here. I'm always going to update this per arc, because I feel like that's an important thing to do. So, of course, top 10 characters at the moment. Of course, number 1, Rem. Already explained that shit at the start and throughout this. All that. Favorite character. And I have legitimate reasonings, not some shit of like, oh, self-insert type of thing. Right? It's not self-insert, sorry, you know what I mean. Although, but no, obviously my whole thing is, I think she's a great character. really fucking cool. Morningstar's great. I have a bias towards characters who are demons, so you know what, whatever. She's cool. It's neat. Whatever. Number 2, I have Beatrice there, because hey, I think Beatrice is really fucking good. Arc 4 really helped me improve my opinion on her. For the longest while, from 1 to 4, or maybe not 4, but 3, she did feel like a character who was just kind of there and didn't really have much. 4 really fucking helped improve that to the point that she became like my number 2 favorite character, and then this arc just made it better. I'm assuming arc 6 is going to make that even better, because I've seen some decent stuff like from her there, so I can't wait for that. Number 3, I have Garfield. He's great. End of arc 4 really helped improve him for me and made him like number 3, and then this fucking arc absolutely helped support that, so hey, he gets that fucking spot, and I have no problems, saying that. And now number 4, which is a brand new fucking addition, which is Sirius. I really think Sirius is a fantastic villain. I've stated my reasons already. Don't think I need to go into that one too much. Number 5, I have Subaru. Just really fucking good main character. I don't see why people complain about him. He's just generally a really good main character. Fantastic. Number 6, Capella. I've stated my reasons. Don't need to go into that too much. Number 7, Ran. I already know some shit about Ran that happens later, so I'm very excited to get to that. But also, already she's been established to be like really fucking good, right, as a character. Like, I don't hold her in the same opinion as, her sister, but at the same time, she's still a really good character. She got some great moments in Arc 2, especially like, Episode 7, right, that whole thing. As well as Arc 4, she had a great fight there. She won also, that's funny. Compared to her sister, she actually wins her fights, whereas her sister is a jobber who has not won any fights. Kind of a funny thing to think about, isn't it? But, hey, she got a really fucking great moment there, and I think she's well deserving of that spot, and I can't wait to see what happens with Arc 6 with her, so I'm very excited. And then number 8, I have Amelia, because, I would almost say she's the lowest out of the 4 big female characters for me, but at the same time she's still very high, of course. This arc really helped improve that, as well as Arc 4. For the longest while, I kind of felt like she was a character also who felt like she was just there, but also more of an important character that was just there. It's weird to almost say that, but you know what I mean, I think. But Arc 4 and Arc 5 have really helped improve my opinion of her and made her feel like a genuine character who was like actually supporting and all that, and like actually had major plot moments and all that, camera and focus while I was saying that. But she actually felt great, and that's why now she's at that spot for me. Now number 9, this is a weird choice, but this is because I already know some shit, so this is how it's gonna be. But number 9 is Melee, because, well, I can't go into it yet, but man, when I do, I think she might even be higher. When I actually go into why, which will, I think she'll actually have an even higher spot, but I'm excited for that. But I think right now, out of the information I already have about her as a character, I think she's completely deserving of that spot. And then number 10, I already stated it earlier, was, well, Teresia Van Estrella, because holy shit, a single chapter managed to make a character who is dead, who is completely dead, and we've only known them to be dead, just already a top 10. It'll probably change. I expect Arc 6 or Arc 7 will have a character who goes above her, but man, she is just insanely good. And the character is, wow, like that chapter was really fucking good. That actually put her up there for me. But that's all. That's my top 10 characters for now. And we'll see how that changes with Arc 6. And hey, I'll see you all probably in the Arc 6 video. That'll be a bit. Wait a month or two, because it's going to take me a bit to finish. And I'm also watching some Yu Yu Hakusho while I'm doing so. So, mixing other shit in there, and I'm going to have to try my best and finish it. But I'll see you all then for the Arc 6 video. So take care. Have a lovely good night. And yeah. See ya.